Rob Dauster here. I got Jeff Goodman with me.
Hell no.
John Fink.
Are we still live?
Field of 68 till I die.
I'm sorry, man. I blacked out.
Randolph Children.
DJ Khaled, you not a big DJ Khaled guy?
Hansbrough up and in.
Goodman needs to be fired all the time.
Josh Tasker.
You're going to beat people straight up.
You know the deal.
Drink responsibly tonight. I'll be drinking with you.
Jarrell McNeil.
From the bluest of the blue bloods to the smallest of the mid-majors.
This is Field of 68 After Dark.
Hello, and welcome to the Tuesday evening edition of the Field of 68 After Dark. We are live on SiriusXM. We are live on Stadium. We are streaming on the Field of 68 YouTube and X channels. My name is Rob Dauster. I have John Henson with me. I have head coach Chris Mack here with me, and we are watching the end of this Houston-BYU game. Number 4, Houston is currently up 69-68 with a minute left at BYU. We will be reacting to that live when that game goes final. We also have to talk about Duke, who finally looks like they are hitting their stride. Jeremy Roach is back. Mark Mitchell is back. And Tyrese Proctor finally showed up for a big game. I also have a hot take on the Big 12. I'm going to ask these guys if I'm crazy. I kind of think the league might be just a little bit overrated right now. They're going to tell me whether I'm smart or an idiot. It's probably going to be the latter, knowing these two. But before we get into all of that, we got to talk about the man, a Saturday night, who did not quite show up tonight the way that we all expected. South Carolina beat number 6 Kentucky 79-62 tonight in Columbia. Our Jeff Goodman was there. We are going to hear from Lamont Paris here in just a little bit, but this was not a vintage Kentucky performance. Chris Mack, what did you make of South Carolina's win and Kentucky's struggles on the road tonight?
Well, I give South Carolina obviously a lot of credit. You know, I think this is a little bit alarming for me with Kentucky. You know, everybody knows how talented they are. You know, you saw Big Z come out on Saturday and do his thing in a very limited amount of time, and you know what he's going to add. But he's still a freshman, and like we've talked about, man, their youth is something that I think when it becomes a pressure moment could scare me a little bit. You know, obviously on the road, these things happen, but I worry about when a team, you know, slows the tempo down, or if Kentucky has a bad shooting night, or they run into a really good team. You know, they've got to be able to defend. They have to be able to win, not just by making threes and not just by a high-flying offense scoring 85, 90 points, because they're going to have some nights where the ball doesn't go in the basket. They're going to have some nights when they're playing teams that, you know, I think they only shot 13 threes tonight. You know, you give South Carolina all the credit in the world, not only to keep them at a low percentage, but to keep them from attempting that many says a lot about South Carolina's attention to detail. That scares me a little bit if I'm a UK fan. But, I mean, their talent, I've been on their bandwagon the entire season. I think it's only gotten better with the addition of Big Z. But when they run into a team where they don't have a good shooting night or a really good defensive team, they have to be able to get stops. They have to be able to defend and play a game in the mud in order to win a national championship, get to a Final Four, which obviously is their goal. And they have the ability, they have the talent, but that experience over the next 15, 20 games leading to the tournament, they're going to have to get that type of experience. This game's going to help, but they've got to be able to play a game in the mud, I think, when it gets hard, because it's going to.
Yeah, Henson, I think this was the performance that kind of showed us the youth, if that makes sense, right? It felt like you watch South Carolina, and that is a team that is a little bit older, more experienced. They're running their offense, they're running their sets, they're getting good shots, where everything that Kentucky got for about like the first 30 minutes or so of that game, it all felt kind of one-on-one. It all felt, all right, DJ Wagner's turn, all right, Robert Dillingham's turn. That works sometimes, but I don't think it worked tonight. You can't do that against a well-coached team on the road like this.
Yeah, on the call, they were pretty much saying South Carolina's like, we know we can't, you know, talent-wise, offensively, maybe compete with them, but if we defend the heck out of them, right, maybe we'll give ourselves a chance. And so watching the game, it just looked like South Carolina came with a plan, laser focus, and they wanted to get this win. They knew that them getting that win would put them in the upper echelon of SEC, you know, with their record, and also what we're talking about. Now they're on our radar, right? Like, hey, you know, Rob, you were talking about, hey, I think this may be a tournament team. And this is just a classic young team. You know, they see that 6 beside their name. I've been there before. you're feeling good, you're feeling great, you're going on the road, and South Carolina was ready for them. And they historically struggled for some reason in South Carolina. So when I played, it was like Georgia Tech and Florida State. We just, I don't know, over the years before and after me, we just couldn't always have a good game there. So that also instills confidence in the opponent as well. And, yeah, they just kind of ran up against a young Kentucky team that just wasn't ready, maybe reading their own press clippings. Obviously, Big Z had that big game, didn't play as well. He had 3 fouls in 10 minutes. You kind of wonder what dynamic that did to the Kentucky team as well, right? Like, what does Coach Cal do? How does he play him? I felt like Bradshaw may press a little bit earlier, and eventually settled in. But by that time, the Gamecocks were, it was over. So credit to the Gamecocks. They're better than we think they are, but Kentucky definitely, this was a big letdown spot for them, showed their youth tonight by getting whooped down there in South Carolina.
Mac, I do feel like this could also be one of those situations where it's like you could use this as a coaching tool, right? Like this is a teaching moment, so to speak, where when you can't get up and down the court and you can't play at pace and you can't do what you want to do, Kentucky wants to play like this. They want to shoot a bunch of threes. They want to space the floor. And when you're going up against a team that wants to grind things out and go possession by possession and play 25 seconds into the shot clock, you got to find another way to win.
You absolutely do. You're going to play those games the deeper you get into March. Conference tournament, it's going to happen. It's certainly going to happen in the NCAA tournament because there are going to be some teams that, even if that's not their style, Rob, they're going to say, listen, we cannot play up-tempo against Kentucky. We just can't do it. Like the more shots that are taken in the game, the more possession, advantage Kentucky. Those guys are just freewheeling and playing together and spraying the ball and shooting a ton of threes. But like if a team can put them in the half court and limit the amount of threes they're taking, they don't really have a low post monster. Those guys got to do a better job. Cal's not playing 2 big guys together. I know Trey Mitchell can go inside a little bit, but Bradshaw's more of an offensive rebounder, a guy that faces the basket. They're going to have to learn how to play when, again, the game gets really sticky and it becomes more half court and they're not shooting well. They got to become a team of execution. Think they can do it? Games like this will certainly help. But this is the one thing that scares you about youth is they haven't been in these types of moments. They're going to be in a lot of them on road trips now. South Carolina is not going to be the only team up for Kentucky when they get them in their building. But they're going to have to answer those challenges when the game gets tight. I felt like Kentucky played tight down the stretch, but that's just a sign, in my opinion, of inexperience. And nights like this, hopefully allow those guys to grow up.
Yep, I agree. I do just want to make one point quickly on Big Z, Zvonimir Ivasic. He had that outstanding debut, which was a lot of fun. Hit the 3 threes. Should have been 4. I'm going to continue to debate whether or not his toe was on the line until the death of me. Had the behind-the-back pass. I don't think that we should be expecting that kind of performance every single game. I also think tonight his first true road environment as a college basketball player after sitting out for 3 months waiting to get eligible, this probably isn't going to be like – this was probably as bad as you're going to see him play. Right. The truth is he's probably somewhere in the middle, a guy that can stretch the floor, protect the rim, make some shots, and help you do some things as a space it out and protect the rim kind of a player. So I'm not – it was fun to see him go off like that. I'm not going to overreact to him struggling in his first road environment. It's not easy to play on the road in college basketball. All right, our Jeff Goodman was down there in Columbia, and he was able to navigate his way through the court storm. Unfortunately, no students hit him in the head with a chair, but he was able to catch up with Lamont Paris after the South Carolina win.
All right, Lamont, back in the Bahamas, you told me you thought this team was going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
16-3 good with just beating Kentucky. I mean, this is I'm not even sure you expected this.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, I didn't look that far into it, but I with those games that we played down there, you could see a couple of things. You could see a complete buy-in. You could see the fact that these guys enjoyed playing and hanging out and being around one another. And, it's hard to say how many times you see that represent itself out on the basketball court.
You made shots and you guarded. That's what you do, isn't it? I mean, You've been preaching that since you've been here. get that culture of playing tough. You kind of made them look like freshmen, I think, for the first time all year.
Yeah. I mean, we were physical. We got the ball around the basket sometimes and tried to make some strong moves. We defended with a little physicality, and that was kind of our goal on the defensive side, was just to present the best defense that they had seen all season and see what that looked like for some of those young guys. And you know, they were in some situations that they probably hadn't been in all season. And so mission accomplished to that end. But it's a simple game. We want to defend really, really hard, be diligent about that. And then on the offense, we got to make a couple shots here or there.
You made a few. The court storm.
Yeah.
You don't get too excited. I've known you 20 years. I haven't seen you get – what was it like watching that here? Because, I mean, again, you took over something that you knew was going to take some time to build, to rebuild.
Yeah, you know, it's great. I love it. I tried to get on the microphone, actually, at the end of the game just so that we could get the teams, at least their team, cleared off before they court storm, but I wasn't going to tell them to court storm. They deserve a court storm, right? It's fun. You're a college student. Yeah. What are you going to do? You're going to be a top 10 team and not do it, right? But I think it's great. It's good for our guys, incredibly fun for our players, and just to know that they had a hand in allowing that situation to happen. So I think it's a big step in terms of on developing what we want to get. It's a great home court advantage and a great home court crowd. We had a sellout crowd tonight. The students had 6,000 tickets that they sold and showed up today.
I mean,
so
first time I've ever been here.
Yeah.
And I come for this. Right. I mean, that student section was electric.
They were.
Really good.
And I don't always, notice it too much, but it was impossible to not notice it in this game. And more so, the guys. There's just a play here or there, and the guys just feed off of that electricity. So it was awesome.
You know, the good thing is you're a lot better coach than you are a blackjack player.
Yeah.
As we saw from Bahamas.
Yes.
And same thing with BJ.
Firsthand.
Hey, listen, BJ might have been the worst blackjack player I've ever seen. And it's really frustrating when you're playing with a guy like that. He doesn't know how to play. He wins, and you're playing right, and you lose.
That's why I'm not a professional gambler.
Yeah, smart.
So yeah, I go there with a couple dollars. I know I'm going to lose. I enjoy it when I have it. But what a great trip that was, and just in terms of team building, getting to know each other. But yeah, I'll stick to basketball and not to blackjack.
Smart move. Congrats on the win.
Thanks, my friend.
It's always good to hear from Jeff Goodman in that enlightening interview. This is where I got to tell you guys about Vaulted. Vaulted is an app that allows you to participate in daily cash prize pools without an entry fee. It is a place you can store your predictions forever. And by using the Vaulted Challenge feature, you can prove you're smarter than your friends. So go download the Vaulted app. That's VLTED to challenge your friends, store your predictions, and join daily cash prize pools without an entry fee. Henson, my Vaulted, my challenge. I'm saying that South Carolina, who's sitting here at 16-3, who's sitting here at 4-2 in the SEC, tied with those Kentucky Wildcats that they just beat today, who has wins over Kentucky, over Mississippi State, over a good Grand Canyon team, and over Virginia Tech on a neutral. I'm saying that this team is dancing. I'm saying that they're going to find a way to get themselves into the NCAA tournament thanks to wins like this. Do you agree? Do you accept my challenge?
I agree. I took a semi-deep, quick dive into their schedule and all the metrics. I think this is a tournament team. If you look at it on paper, this is a tournament team. They've got some games coming up. I mean, they've got Tennessee, Auburn, so they have some more chances for quad one wins. But other than that, if they can win the games they're supposed to win, they're squarely in the field.
Yeah, I like their guards. I like Michi Johnson. Talon Cooper was the best player on the floor tonight. He was really impressive. All right, we got to talk about another one of the Blue Bloods who found a way to pick up a win tonight. The Duke Blue Devils went on the road to Louisville to pick up an 83-69 win. The big news here, Mac, they got back Jeremy Roach, who only played 17 minutes tonight, and they got back Mark Mitchell, who finished with 20 points and 12 boards. But I think more than anything else, what I highlighted watching this game, or what I kind of made the mental note of, was Tyrese Proctor finally looked like the Tyrese Proctor that I said was going to be a top 10 pick coming into the season. So if I could just restart the year and pretend that this was the first game that he played, that's what I really want to do. He finished with 24, had 4 assists. He had just 1 turnover. He made 4 threes, and 3 of them just felt like when he let it go, ooh, that's a big one. They really need that one. What'd you make of the Blue Devils tonight, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I thought obviously one of his best games of the year by far, and and the time they needed. You talked about Jeremy Roach coming back, and we just talked about Kentucky's inexperience. Well, that's exactly what he brings the Duke Blue Devils, and that is a ton of experience. A guy, I think that when he is on the floor, they look a lot more comfortable. And him going down, I believe it was in the first half on that locker room. Then he didn't return. He had ice on his ankle. I'm hoping that's only a few days type thing, but they need him healthy. I think obviously Caleb Foster's a good player. Tyrese Proctor had a great game tonight. Jared McCain as well. But there's a difference when you have a senior point guard on the floor, a very successful senior point guard. And so, Filipowski's always going to be a monster matchup problem. Mark Mitchell played incredibly well tonight, but they need Jeremy Roach, in my opinion, to be the team that has a chance to get, because without him, I don't see it. I think they've got to be a little bit nastier on the defensive end. They certainly out-rebounded Louisville by, I think, 15. So they have it within them. Mark Mitchell, I think, is a difference maker in terms of athleticism. But I'm going to repeat that point one more time. Jeremy Roach needs to be on the floor for Duke to be the complete team they are.
Yeah, Henson, you are a North Carolina alum. You can see that NC just above your shoulder over there on the medals that you have back there and some of the trophies you have back there. I know that you don't love saying nice things about Duke, but where does this team stand to you? And I think we can all agree that North Carolina is the favorite in the ACC right now, and probably the best team. How far behind is Duke when they are healthy and when they're playing with all of their guys?
Yeah, when they're healthy, they're not far behind. I think in a couple weeks, or maybe less than a couple weeks, that game of UNC, if they're fully healthy, I don't think it's going to be a game for UNC or to win that game. So Duke is a scary team when healthy, because we really don't know what they look like at full strength yet. Even with Roach going down today, Foster didn't have a good game today, Proctor did. So if they're all rotating on all cylinders, we still haven't really seen what they could be. Maybe early in the season they beat Baylor, maybe. But down the stretch healthy, this is a team that could win the ACC. And, if you do the math and you look at the last ACC champions, right, 5 to 6 losses is usually going to get you in the mix to either tie or win the ACC championship. So 2 games is not that big of a difference between them and UNC right now, and they got them coming up. So Duke is right there in the mix. Healthy-wise, we've yet to see what they look like, but I think they're gonna be right there at the end with North Carolina, potentially Florida State now, right? How they look, and some other teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, getting Proctor playing well is key. Getting Roach healthy is key, and I also do think having the athleticism and presence of Mark Mitchell really matters. Mm-hmm. As long as R.J. Davis keeps playing like Steph Curry, though, I don't think anybody else has a chance in the ACC. I'll just put that out there. Listen, we got to take a quick break. On the other side, we're going to talk about 2 of the number 1 seeds from our most recent Fielding the 68 bracket and how they won. What's going on, guys? Before we get back to the show, I need to let you all know about the Field of 68 Daily, an all-encompassing college basketball newsletter that arrives in your inbox, you guessed it, daily. For less than $1 a week, you'll wake up every morning to more than 1,500 words detailing everything that you need to know to stay up to date on the world of college basketball. From the notable mid-major upsets to the stars that are out injured to the breakout performances that only our team of college basketball junkies watched. The Daily is edited and produced by Mike Miller, who spent more than 2 decades running NBC's digital written content, and is subscribed by more than half of the Division I coaching staffs, the biggest names in college basketball media, and the agents that work as power brokers in the sport. For just $50 for the year, you get access to the same information that the insiders get. And before we get you back to your regularly scheduled Field of 68 content, let me tell you guys about the Field of 68 merch store. Head over to fieldof68.shop for officially branded Field of 68 apparel. Whether you're supporting your favorite team in the student section or from the couch, there is no better way to gear up than the latest from the Field of 68. The best thing I can say about our merch is the quality of the product. Anyone that has ever worn a t-shirt knows how frustrating it is when the neck gets all stretched out and the bottom of the shirt starts looking like the bottom of bell-bottom jeans. And there's nothing worse than a hoodie that loses its snugness that makes it such a perfect way to stay warm during the cold winter weather. Whether you're shopping for yourself or for the college basketball fan in your life, everything you need is at the field68.shop. Welcome back. It is the Tuesday evening edition of the Field of 68 After Dark. We are presented by our partners over at BetMGM. We are live, Sirius XM Channel 84. We're on Stadium. We are streaming on YouTube. We are streaming on X. My name is Rob Dauster. That is John Henson. That is Coach Chris Mack. And that is a long intro to get into a conversation about number 4 Houston going on the road and beating number 21 BYU. The final score there was 75-68. It looked for a little while like Houston was going to run away with this thing, but BYU made a big run down the stretch. They were able to get it tied with about a minute left, but Houston made some free throws and found a way to pull away, getting, you'll be shocked, some stops on the defensive end of the floor. Chris, it feels like Houston is just that team this year that's going to consistently fly under the radar. And I don't know if that's because they didn't really beat anybody in non-conference, if that's just because there is nothing really sexy or flashy about this Houston team. But if they can go on the road to teams like BYU, to teams that are as high in the metrics as BYU is, and control a game from the tip, that feels like something that's notable, especially when you get a guy like LJ Cryer, who struggled a little bit in Big 12 play to get it going. What do you make of Houston? What do you make of the Cougars? What do you make of Kelvin Sampson's program?
I mean, their transition to the Big 12 hasn't been very tough, very difficult for them. I mean, they go on the road, back-to-back games. They lose at Iowa State in a one-possession game. They lose at TCU in a one-point game. Other than that, they haven't lost. I love Houston. They got junkyard dogs. They play 3-guard lineups. Manuel Sharp didn't play as well tonight normally does, but LJ Cryer, Jamal Shed, those guys really know how to control the game, get in the lane, and hit shots. And you know this, whether it's this year, whether it's last year, whether it's the last 4 or 5 years, Houston defends their tails off. And, you know, BYU, 68 points is about as low as you're going to see when you watch a BYU team play. Houston just has a bunch of junkyard dogs. I would not be surprised if they're not a Final Four team once again. I just love everything about their DNA, the identity that Kelvin Sampson has formed really since he took over the Houston Cougars. They're legit in my mind. They're not scared of any moment of any team. They're the real deal. And the transition they've made to the Big 12 has been seamless.
John?
Yeah. They haven't let anyone score over 70 points on them, which is, I mean, super impressive. To have that kind of defensive focus is pretty impressive. And like at the Iowa State game I watched, I mean, they could have won that game, and even TCU on the road, tough environments. They're here to stay, you know, as far as that discussion, being one of the top teams in the country. And when you got 2 guards that can control the game and you defend at the level that they defend, you're going to be in every single game. And if I had to take Houston at the end of games against anybody they play coming on the schedule, I'm taking them in 1 or 2 possession games. So I'm excited to see them at Texas. That's my game that I want to see what happens, because Texas is also trending up. But for the most part, man, Houston is making a seamless transition to the Big 12. Not much has changed. They've lost 2 games, true road games. That's only kind of blips on their resume. You know, they're definitely like a Final Four team for sure, number 1 seed if they keep this pace.
So I agree with everything you guys just said, and I say this in the context of them being a top 5 team in the sport and one of the top probably 3 programs over the course of the last like 6 or 7 years. I'm a little bit worried about teams where their offense is, when everything breaks down, just throw it up at the basket and we'll go try to get it, right? I'm a little bit worried when you are a team that kind of relies a little bit on turnovers, getting stuff in transition. Like, it just feels like at some point great offense is going to beat great defense. And I don't know, Chris, if I would call Houston necessarily a great offensive team, but I feel like that's also just me kind of nitpicking a little bit what this team and this program can be.
Listen, I think that, you know, you as a program, you as a coach have to figure out what is your identity going to be. You know, you can't you can't be the jack of all trades. You can't be a team that's a lockdown team in the half court defensively. You can't be and then also be a team that plays up tempo. And then you're also a team that really executes in the half court. Like, Kelvin Sampson's team, they defend you, and they are junkyard dogs on both ends of the floor on the glass. And I also feel like they have some guys that can get their own. Now that may not manifest itself into you saying it's a high octane, powerful type offense, but they got some guys that, like John said, one possession game, somebody he can get his shot off. So can LJ Cryer, so can Emmanuel Sharp for that matter. He's only a sophomore. So I just think that they're going to give themselves a chance. I'm not saying that they're going to win it all. I'm not going to say they're a shoo-in for the Final Four by any means. I just think no matter who they play, they're going to figure out, because of their identity and who they've been, who they are this year, to keep it a one-possession game. They're going to be in the game, and they're going to give themselves a chance to win because their identity is defend your ass and rebound the ball on both ends of the floor. And they may play a Connecticut team, a team that can match their physicality on the glass. It's going to happen, but they're not going to back down to anybody they play. They're always going to, in my opinion, give themselves a chance to win.
Yeah, I'm saying all this, John, in the last 4 NCAA tournaments we've had, Houston's gone to the Sweet 16, to the Final Four, to the Elite 8, and to the Sweet 16. Maybe I'm just being a hater. Is that what the kids call it these days? I might just be being a hater.
Well, I think being in the Big 12 is going to, instill confidence and teach them how to beat teams in different ways. You got to think, in the conference they were last year, they just would hold teams to 40 points and win by 30. So there was no resistance. There was no challenge. There was no losing 2 games back-to-back on the road and having to come back and win a game against a good team. So I think all this is going to help them in the tournament and just be like, hey, look, all right, we've been here before. We've seen this. We've been down by 1 at TCU with 2 possessions left. This is the first time we've seen this in the Sweet 16 in 2 months.
All right, so transitioning from one number 1 seed to the other number 1 seed from our fielding the 68 bracket, Purdue tonight put up 99 points on Michigan. The final score was 99-67. You could have turned this thing off 5 minutes in. Mac, there was one point in the second half, I want to say with about 11 or 12 minutes left, where Purdue didn't have a turnover yet. Now, they finished with 7. They got a little sloppy at the end, which will kind of happen in games like this. But Braden Smith, 11 points, 10 assists, 7 boards. Lance Jones, 24 points. Zach Edey, who I think has reclaimed his title as the official Big Z of college basketball. If you disagree with me, feel free to go ahead and weigh in there. But he had 16 and 10, and it felt like he just, I don't want to say he wasn't trying, but he was just kind of on cruise control out there after going for 30 and 10 in each of the last 3 games. I guess my big question with Purdue is, How can you trust a team where it feels like one of their important players, one of their important guards, they just don't all come together at the same time? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think if you're nitpicking them, I think that there have been times where Lawyer didn't play his best. Zach Edey is always going to be a problem. And, I guess when I think of Purdue, Rob, I think of a team that we all know the storyline. Amazing regular season, unbelievable, conference tournament run, and they go in and they're the second 1 seed to, ever lose in the first round. And they've had to wear that the entire offseason. Now, those guys developed a hunger, a sort of pissed off attitude. They go into this season, and it's like you don't start with the NCAA tournament. You start with game 1 in the non-conference part of the season. And so at times maybe Purdue hasn't looked as sharp. They've obviously played an incredible schedule. They won the Maui. They took their a couple lumps early on in Northwestern and in the Big Ten. But I think at the end of the day, when that NCAA tournament rolls around, you're going to see a different Purdue team. I'm not saying they're going to go to the Final Four. I'm not. Those guys have had that in the back of their mind ever since they sat in that locker room a year ago, last March. It's the worst feeling in the world when you lose in the NCAA tournament. I can't imagine what they felt and obviously getting Jones out of the portal, I think helps maybe a little bit of their weakness in terms of taking guys off the dribble and adding a potent scorer on the perimeter, a guy that's able to defend as well. So I really like Matt Painter's group. I think he can nitpick him a little bit here and there, but they're gonna win the Big Ten Conference tournament, and they're going to do some damage in the NCAA tournament, in my opinion.
Henson, I think the consensus kind of is right now it's Duke and Purdue, UConn and Purdue, and then everybody else. Are you there? You're a North Carolina guy. Would you put North Carolina in that same conversation? Like where do we stand on the top, maybe the top tier?
Yeah, I'm there, which I think those are the two teams that are right there. If we said, hey, if you had to bet your money on two teams that would win it, North Carolina's below, and I think they're at their ceiling of what we can think of them being at the ACC. We won't really, even if they beat Duke. I mean, is that going to change how we feel about them being championship contenders? They'll probably just stay where we thought they would be. In reference to Purdue, I think the only way they lose is a bad matchup. That's the thing I'm worried about Purdue. Just a bad matchup. Just coming against a team that may have a big.
What would a bad
matchup
be to you? Where do you see a bad matchup be?
I would say a big match for them is a big man that could potentially hold his own down there. I'm not saying guard Edie, but hold his own down there and not need as much help and make other players beat them on Purdue. If you can get down there, even get them in foul trouble, put them on the perimeter. I look at a team like Kentucky, right? If with the size they have, if they could get him moving around and they got Dillingham coming off screens and Edie's got to be moving around and if Edie's playing in a drop against Dillingham Jr., he's going to have 40. So, like, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? So that's the only way I see them losing, and it may not happen. But if they come against a team with high-level offense, I mean, even like UConn, I would take UConn over Purdue right now just because I think Clingan can hold it down for a little bit and
because ball. That's what it is. Because ball.
Force Edie to take some shots, and nobody's going to be able to guard Tristan Newton. He's going to be spraying the ball around. They've got shooters. I mean, it could be ugly, but that's the only way I see them having a problem this year. To be honest, just a bad matchup. But they are the best team in the country to me.
Yeah. All right, Matt, give me your game plan right now.
You're 7-game series, they're going to win all. 7-game series, yeah. I think they would win it all.
That's the beauty of the tournament, man. We don't play 7-game series here. We got 1-game series. Mac, real quick, give me your game plan to upset Purdue first weekend of the NCAA tournament. What are you doing? Praying?
Oh man, I think it would really come down to who's played well for Purdue the last 5 to 8 games. I think that, like, is there a guy that's maybe in his head a little bit, hasn't hit shots? Braden Smith, that guy. Because he's had some games where he's gone 1 for 10. The thing I love about him, though, is he's not going to tie his effort on running the team or his defensive effort into how he's shooting the ball. But you can have a guy maybe double Zach Edey off the catch, get deep position, because then the double's irrelevant. He's already dunking the ball on the guy that's coming to double him. So being able to push him away from the box, and just like John talked about, somebody that can hold their own. I also see it from the other perspective. If Zach Edey's got to guard a guy that's, a stretch 5 that can, knock down 5 or 6 threes, where all of a sudden it's like you're getting the big fellow away from the basket. You're putting him in a predicament of getting in foul trouble a little bit by moving his feet, but being further from the basket than he'd like to be. But again, just nitpicking. I still think they're going to be there right to the end in March. I think they're clearly – those guys in UConn are two of the best, are the 2 best teams in college basketball right now.
Well, I'll tell you this much: if we get a Purdue UConn matchup on Monday night in Phoenix, April 8th, I will not be complaining about seeing that happen. Listen, we got to get to break here. On the other side of the break, I want to ask you guys about the team that is actually in first place in the Big Ten standings right now. It's not Purdue. We'll tell you who next. As you guys know by now, we've partnered with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 each and every week of the college basketball season. We have a special offer that will be available starting on Tuesday, January 9th and running through Monday, February 12th, the morning after Super Bowl 58. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, in honor of the big game, you can use the bonus code FIELD158 and you'll get $158 in free bets on your first wager with BetMGM, regardless of whether or not you win that first bet. Here's how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app. Sign up using the bonus code FIELD158. Deposit at least $5 and place your first wager on any game. You'll receive $158 in bonus bets regardless of the outcome of your bet. Just make sure that you use that bonus code FIELD158 when you sign up. And remember, BetMGM is now available under one wallet in select states. As a New Jersey resident, this is super convenient when I have to go cover games in New York or Philly, which happens quite a bit. When you cross state borders, you just log into your existing account and fire away. You don't have to create separate accounts in each state. It's easy, it's simple, it's clean. And most importantly, we have some fun stuff coming up for the heart of the college basketball season. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odd boosts, and my favorite, a nice juicy parlay boost. So download the BetMGM app and sign up today. Field 158. Welcome back to the Tuesday evening edition of the Field of 68 After Dark. My name is Rob Dauster. I have Chris Mack with me. I have John Henson with me. We just finished talking about Purdue, who won by roughly 1,000 points tonight at home against Michigan, who is actually in last place in the Big Ten, which is not something I would have expected to say 3 months ago when I was planning out what we were going to do for this season. Purdue's not in first place, though. That is Wisconsin, who went on the road tonight. They went to the barn, they went up to Minneapolis, and they beat Minnesota 61-59 in a game where they blew a double-digit lead in the second half, but found a way to hang on down the stretch. It was actually a wild finish. Minnesota went to the line for 2 shots, down by 3 with, I think, 3 seconds left, hit the first, missed the second perfectly. The shooter that missed the free throw got a rebound in the corner, had like a good look from about 10 feet that he missed with a chance to tie the game and force overtime. Wisconsin survives. They're 15-4. They're 7-1 in the conference. AJ Storr still balling out. Tyler Wall still balling out. Max Klesmit has been on fire for the last 2 weeks. And I don't know if I actually buy this team, Mac. Like I'll watch them. I'll watch them do things and I'll say, oh, look, you're going to give a Wisconsin team a guy and an athlete and a penetrator like AJ Storr, and you got guys that can make shots. You got the big guy, Steven Crowell, inside and all this. And then you watch them go on the road and struggle with Minnesota and go on the road and lose at Penn State. And I don't know. Where do you stand on Wisconsin? Are they for real? I guess is the question I'm asking.
I stand right about where you stand. You know, they're 15-4. I think Greg's done a great job with his team. But I'm not blown away by their talent. I'm certainly not blown away by, they're. I think they're a good team. I don't think they have a chance of winning the Big Ten. I think that belongs to Purdue. I think they got an early lead. We're going to know a lot more about Wisconsin here over the next week and a half. They go Michigan State at home. They go at Nebraska, which has suddenly become one of the most difficult places to play in the country. And then you go Purdue at home. So it's going to get real for them. They've done a great job up to this point. Couple scares. Obviously, the loss to Penn State hurts them. But find out what they're making games. If all of a sudden they're 18-4 or even 17-5, then maybe we have a different conversation. But those are going to be 3 challenging games for sure.
Yeah, Henson, I just can't shake the I watched the whole game when they went to Providence, and they were down by like 30 in that game, right? And I know they beat Marquette, and I know they have the win at Michigan State, and they're 7-1 in Big Ten play. But there's just something about the first time that you see a team, if they get waxed, you just can't get that out of your head. It's like an earworm, man. It just gets stuck in there.
Hey, a wise man once told me first impression is the last impression, so you're right about that. I think they're doing the things they're supposed to do. They're winning the games they're supposed to win, however it may come. And I think we overlook that sometimes. We don't think a team's going to be good or we're going to win. But, I mean, they're, besides the Penn State loss, I mean, they make their free throws. They don't really turn it over that much. They pass the ball. They're a solid team. And right now, in this college basketball this year, solid teams are good teams. And so the stretch they have coming up, like Coach Mack said, we'll be able to get to see who they are. But they're doing what they're supposed to do, and I respect it. And I can't really put them in a category of what they're going to be, but within the next 2 weeks, we will know what they are. And I'm willing to bet that they may come out of that stretch, 8-3, which still puts them right in the mix to be at the top of the Big Ten and potentially challenge Purdue if they, decide to slip up. It's going to be on them, not Wisconsin.
Yeah. Their last game of the regular season. Go ahead, Matt.
I don't want to give Badger fans the wrong impression. I think they're a good team, like John talked about. I just don't think they're, in Purdue's class. Which again, how many teams are? I think that they've played obviously really well. You win, it's all that matters. But I obviously when it's a close game, and Minnesota's a tough place to play. If you're going to challenge for a Big Ten title on the road, whether they're a good team or an average team. And so we'll know a lot more about Wisconsin after these next 3 games, in my opinion. But I just don't think they're in Purdue's class.
Yeah, I tend to agree. The one thing I'm hoping for is that Wisconsin and Purdue are tied atop the Big Ten standings on the last game of the regular season when Wisconsin's got to go on the road to Purdue on Sunday on the last day of the regular season, on the last home game of Zach Edey's career. Good luck beating them on senior night for the man that we got to call Big Z. All right, I teased this a little bit earlier. I got a hot take about the Big 12, and I gotta get you guys' opinions on this because I don't know if I'm taking crazy pills, but part of me kind of thinks that this love fest for how difficult the Big 12 has a lot to do with the Big 12 just kind of beating up on each other and them having all these great computer numbers, okay? So Texas and Oklahoma is the perfect example of this for me. Texas goes on the road. They beat Oklahoma, who's ranked number 11, by 15 points. We're all going to rave about how big of a win this is because Oklahoma looks great in the rankings. They have this great computer profile. Well, Oklahoma's big wins this season right now. They beat Iowa on a neutral floor, whatever. They beat USC on a neutral floor, okay. They beat Arkansas on a neutral floor, that's fine. They beat Providence at home, I guess that's pretty good. Then they got Iowa State and they got Cincinnati on the road, right? Which are good wins if you think that the Big 12 is good and by the computer metrics. Texas, who just beat them, their wins this season, LSU on a neutral. They won at Cincinnati, which I guess is pretty good. Now they won at Oklahoma. They have beaten Baylor at home, which is a pretty good win, but that's basically one good win, one great win between those two teams, right? You look at TCU. They've beaten Houston at home. And beyond that, it's like everything is on Oklahoma win, another team in the Big 12. Cincinnati, same kind of thing. They won at BYU. They beat TCU in overtime. Are we really that impressed with TCU when they haven't really beat anyone themselves? So I guess what I'm asking, Henson, is the Big 12 actually good? Is it this good? Or is it just a bunch of like pretty good teams that are cannibalizing each other and beating up on each other because there's no real difference between the best team and like the 12th best team?
Yeah, we talked about how kind of like the SEC floor, like are they really good or are they just beating up each other? And then, but at the end of the day, the SEC is the SEC and it's the best conference in the land, and they judge that by championships, which the Big 12 hasn't been able to do per se as of late. But I think Cincinnati is the epitome of the Big 12. They beat BYU at BYU. They lose by 1 to Texas, lose by 3 to Baylor, beat TCU, lost by 4 to OCU, lose by 5 in Fog Island. And they're at the bottom of the standings. I think that shows how good the Big 12 is because Cincinnati's a good team, in my opinion. And they're literally 2 possessions away from potentially being 3 or 4 high-level tournament teams. So I do think the Big 12 is a little overrated, but, I mean, they've got 10, 11 teams that I think should and could get into that tournament. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, right? Everyone's going to be keeping tally of what the Big 12 does in March Madness. But right now they're just a really deep league, and they're out-of-conference games that the teams have won and played. They fared fairly well as well. So I wouldn't say they're overrated, but not as good as people say they are.
Mac?
Man, I think it's a hell of a conference. I think that, 5 games into conference play, I don't think you can really look at standings. I think it obviously depends on who you've played at home, who you've played away. but literally almost every team in the Big 12, outside of maybe 2 or 3 teams, brought in like heavy non-conference records. Now, you can nitpick on certain teams, like you talked about with Oklahoma, their strength of schedule in the non-conference. But for the most part, Big 12 isn't ducking anybody. And almost every team came in with a 12-1 record, 13-0 record, 10-3 record. You know, very, very few upsets by the teams that I think are going to be representing the Big 12 in the NCAA tournament. They are going to beat up on each other. It's a hard league, man. You play 2 games. Sometimes you're playing Saturday, Monday, home, then you go on the road. You know, the Baylors, the Kansases, the Houstons of the world, like you got some really good teams, some really talented players. And John knows this, man. When you have a power conference, like if you're a team that's maybe towards the bottom and not necessarily going to be a team that makes the NCAA tournament, you probably got a dude or two on your team that can go off for 30 or 35 and upset somebody in your conference. And I think that's what's happening in a few of these games. I think they're going to have 10 bids, 11. You know, it's certainly going to be really odd to see like what type of conference record still tournament. I know the committee never says that never matters, but it's going to be really interesting to see this. The 7-13 get you in the NCAA tournament, 8-12 get you in the NCAA tournament, but a lot of deserving teams, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think they'll probably get 10 or 11, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that the Pac-12 is looking more and more like a 1 or 2 bid league.
Yeah.
And the ACC might end up being like a 4 bid league, and you got to get these teams in from somewhere, right? Yeah, 2.5. You got to get these teams in from somewhere. You know, we might see 2 come out of the Missouri Valley. Depending on what happens with Dayton, we might see 2 come out of the Atlantic 10. We might see like 5, maybe 6 come out of the Mountain West, depending on how everything shakes out there. But you got to get these bids somewhere, and a lot of them are going to come from the Big 12. I just kind of feel a little bit like it's – so you remember the Big 10? I want to say it was like 2022 when I think they got 11 teams into the tournament, and I think maybe one of them made it out of the first weekend. It kind of feels like that a little bit to me, where there's a lot of good teams, and I don't know if there's necessarily – more than Kansas and Houston, any great teams, but I guess that will all kind of play out. And I will say this, I don't know if there's a league that has coaching the level that the Big 12 does, from team 1 all the way down to team 14. There's a lot of guys that are good there, a lot of home court advantages. You're right, it's a bear. Maybe I'm just talking out of my ass. Maybe this is just the day where I talk out of my ass and I say some things and you guys try to talk some sense into me and it actually works. Who knows? We'll see if that happens. Listen, when we come back, I have a former Xavier head coach here with me. Xavier lost on the road to Creighton. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And we got to talk about the big news of the weekend, Ed Cooley's homecoming. We're going to be there. What's he going through right now? What's going on, guys? Before we get back to the show, I need to let you all know about the Field of 68 Daily, an all-encompassing college basketball newsletter that arrives in your inbox, you guessed it, daily. For less than $1 a week, you'll wake up every morning to more than 1,500 words detailing everything that you need to know to stay up to date on the world of college basketball. From the notable mid-major upsets to the stars that are out injured to the breakout performances that only our team of college basketball junkies watched. The Daily is edited and produced by Mike Miller, who spent more than 2 decades running NBC's digital written content, and is subscribed by more than half of the Division I coaching staffs, the biggest names in college basketball media, and the agents that work as power brokers in the sport. For just $50 for the year, you get access to the same information that the insiders get. And before we get you back to your regularly scheduled Field of 68 content, let me tell you guys about the Field of 68 merch store. Head over to fieldof68.shop for officially branded Field of 68 apparel. Whether you're supporting your favorite team in the student section or from the couch, there is no better way to gear up than the latest from the Field of 68. The best thing I can say about our merch is the quality of the product. Anyone that has ever worn a t-shirt knows how frustrating it is when the neck gets all stretched out and the bottom of the shirt starts looking like the bottom of bell-bottom jeans. And there's nothing worse than a hoodie that loses its snugness that makes it such a perfect way to stay warm during the cold winter weather. Whether you're shopping for yourself or for the college basketball fan in your life, everything you need is at the Field of 68 Shop. Welcome back to the Tuesday evening edition of the Field of 68 After Dark. My name is Rob Dauster. I have John Henson. I have Chris Mack. We're live on Sirius XM. We're live on Stadium, and we're streaming over on YouTube. Make sure you jump in the chat. Fire away some questions. We are going to have last call going tonight. We're answering anything you want to ask us for about 30 minutes. There's a lot going on in college basketball, so I know that you guys have some questions. Mac, I'm going to start with you on this one. So Creighton beat Xavier 85-78. I actually thought Xavier played really well, considering that they've been shorthanded this season and considering they were going on the road to one of the tougher environments in the Big East. I thought their guards were really good. I thought they've been really impressive all year, and I think this Xavier team can score. It feels like they're just one guy short, right? It feels like that they just had one big body inside that would be able to deal with some of the size and some of the physicality, that they'd have a real chance this year. You think that's fair to say? I think Sean's done a good job with the pieces that he has available.
Yeah, obviously Xavier fans know it very well. I mean, you lose, two quality starters and Zach Fremantle and Jerome Hunter. I mean, that just puts you behind the eight ball to start the year. But I feel like they've been playing their best basketball of the year. I felt like they were in control the entire game until Shireman got it going there late. I think McDermott ran an out of bounds play for him. He hit a three and sort of got him going. And then, with Kalkbrenner, he's just such a tough matchup. If you ever switch a ball screen, they just roll him to the rim and throw it up in the air. And, he's just so daggone long. And he's not the strongest kid in the world. So any bump, now it's going to get the call, and not that it wasn't, but he's going to get the call, and I put a couple guys on Xavier's bench. I thought McKnight kept him in the game. He hit some big-time floaters, big-time pull-ups over Kalkbrenner, but tough place to play. I feel like Xavier's been playing their best basketball here as of late, but I don't know what the magic number is for them in terms of how many wins they have to get in the Big East to be an NCAA tournament team. I think it was Lenardi had them like next four out, whatever that is, or the last four, kind of thing. So they're moving in the right direction. They've got young bigs. They just do, but they're getting better. Whether they can get good enough to make the tournament, I think that'll be an interesting storyline here over the next month.
Yeah. Henson, I want to ask you about Creighton because we had a long conversation about them on Saturday. And I love the way that the roster is built. I love the presence of Kalkbrenner, and I think that McDermott runs really, really good stuff. I just think that they need a guy that can break down a defense. They need like a Lance Jones, right? They need someone that can be quick enough to where you just kind of call something up and say, all right, we need you to get a paint touch here. We need you to go beat someone. We need you to make a play. Everything's broken down. There's 8 seconds left on the shot clock. We need someone to go make something happen. I feel like they don't have that guy. What do you make of this team? They're 6-3 in the Big East. They're sitting in third place in the conference right now. Where do you stand?
Yeah, they're doing what they're doing the best with what they've got. I was watching the game today, and I think a kid like Ashworth, right, little undersized, can't really drive you like that, but plays the game the right way, a little feisty. I think, that hurts them, right? Last for the perimeter, they had Nimhard and Kaluma, who were two guys that could really get after it offensively and brought a kind of different level of athleticism, speed, and skill on that perimeter, which they don't have. So now they're playing faster, they're shooting more threes, which is how they're countering it. And for the most part, they're doing well. I think we had higher expectations for them, but as it stands right now, they're doing the best of what they got, as is Xavier. But I do like Creighton. They're going to be a hard team to beat. They like to, they can shoot the ball. They've got the 2-time defensive player of the year down low, so they're always going to have a chance in most games. Their ceilings is very limited with the current roster they have, but I like what McDermott is doing with that roster, and they're playing well considering kind of the lack of talent on the perimeter per se, offensively.
All right, I want to.
No disrespect to my boy Trado. No disrespect to my boy Trado. I'm sorry. I didn't mention him, but
look. I've been on the trade. I've been on the Trey Alexander bandwagon since he was a freshman. I love what he can do defensively, and I think that he is a very good piece. I just feel like he'd be best if you had like a small, quick point guard next to him and allowed him to be like that secondary guy, that second side guy. That I don't think his role is as the number one point guard leader, however you want to phrase it.
Playing him and Sharman 40 minutes a night, and you're not haven't even reached the meat of the schedule. It's not good, which tells you a lot about the drop off in talent when they go out of the game.
Yep. I do want to switch gears a little bit and stay in the Big East. Ed Cooley is heading back to Providence after leaving this spring for Georgetown. We're going to be up there for that game. I'm expecting it to be, I guess, intense is probably the nice way to say it. Maybe angry, maybe a lot of frustrated fans, maybe some tall boys flying around all over the place. If you guys, Mac, we'll start with you on this one. If you're in that situation and you're Ed Cooley, like how do you handle this? What is going through your head? What is going through your mind? I mean, you've coached in your hometown before, right? And it just, how do you deal with that? What is he going through in this moment?
Whatever is going through your mind, I think it's important to sort of leave it there and not necessarily, share it with the team. I would just prepare my team as best I can, and talk about the strengths and weaknesses of Providence, how you're going to attack them, and not necessarily worry about the environment. You might address it and just say, hey, it's going to be chaotic. Let's concentrate and worry about what's in the lines. Let's make sure that, we get off to a really good start. Last thing you want to do is walk in there and all of a sudden it's 10-2 Friars, and then it's just going to get worse. You got to make sure you're giving your best punch. You guys are ready from the get-go. But it's going to be a unique experience, but it's going to be something he's going to have to deal with, every year because, in the Big East, you get that true round robin. You play everybody home and away. It's not like the ACC or some of the other conferences where you only play them maybe once every couple of years. So this will be the first taste, and I'm sure it's not going to be the most welcome Ed Cooley's ever gotten before.
Yeah, Henson, would this be akin to you leaving North Carolina, transferring to Duke, and then walking back into the Dean Dome wearing that Duke blue? Can I even put this thought in your head without you wanting to throw up?
Yeah, I don't know if it compares to that, but I think Providence fans and people around the program got to have a little more like grace, man. Like, do we even know what a Providence Friar is without Ed Cooley? Like, what are we talking about here? Like, they should be kind of thanking him for being there so long, putting that program into prominence. I mean, it was a job people would have taken. They've got a nice young coach now that usher in the future. Like, I think he should get a standing O rather than all the kind of hate that we've been seeing. And, it's going to be a hostile environment. But, like, I mean, I think he's a legend for that program. He should be treated as one. Do walk through those doors.
That's kind of where I'm at with the two. But listen, we're going to talk a lot more about that later this week and on Saturday. Listen, in the field of 68 after dark, we're heading over to Stadium's YouTube channel. Last call. We answer your questions. 30 minutes.